Hello, my name is Scott Coates and I'm a science and engineering teacher at Tolt Middle School in Carnation, Washington. And today I'm going to talk to you about guitar hacks. And I'm calling this one the ultimate guitar hack. It's not a guitar at all. And in this video I'll show you how you can build a cigar box ukulele for less than $20 that sounds nice and looks good. So here are the supplies that we need to make a cigar box ukulele. We need a 22-inch piece of poplar that's 1.5 inch by 1/2 inch. A smaller piece of poplar that's 1/4 by 8.5 by 1.5 inches. The fretboard is made out of oak that's 1.5 by 1/4 by 9.5 inches. The tailpiece is made out of 3/8 inch oak doweling that's 2 inches long, that's drilled out to have the strings go through. The nut and the bridge are 3D printed, so their cost is virtually nothing. I get fret wire. It's medium nickel fret wire. I get that at cbgiddysupply.com, and the tuners also come from cbgiddy.com. I get ukulele strings from Strings by Mail. Altogether this comes out to be a little bit less than $20. Alright, so to make the ukulele, the first thing that we do is we get the piece that's going to be used for the neck, and we use a little hand plane, and we round off the back of this piece of poplar wood. We measure back 4.25 inches and up 8.5 inches, and we round this off. Make it nice and smooth so that when the kids hold it, it feels good in their hand. The next step is we start working on the fretboard. It's a standard 13.5 inch ukulele, so we measure the frets off. You can find that online almost anywhere. We use a square to mark off the frets, and then we can saw them in. To do that, I use a little miter box. We put the fretboard down inside there, and then we use, this is one of the few special tools, we use a Stewie Mac Fret Saw. This fret saw has an 020 kerf. When it's set up inside the miter box, as you cut down, as soon as you reach the bumps on the back saw here, it stops sawing and it puts the frets at a perfect length and depth, excuse me. Alright, so once we have the frets all sawed in and installed, we will take this spacer piece of poplar, stacks like this, and then we'll glue it to the neck. Right, to install the tuning machines, we find the placement by using these little templates that I make. We measure down 1 inch, 2.25 inches, and in 3/8 from each end, and that marks where the tuning machines go. We mark the end of the neck assembly with this, and then we drill them out. And we can use either a hand drill with a 5/16 inch drill bit, or we use a drill press as well, and that sets the holes right where we need them. So we've got the holes drilled for the tuning machines, we've got all the frets installed. We use a spacer in between the fretboard and the neck to allow for the finished neck to slide into a slot we're going to cut on the cigar box. As you put this together, it's really important to make sure that the fretboard is not behind this spacer. If it does, the nut doesn't set right. So it's really important to make sure that these are perfectly lined up. Alright, so to install this, what I like to do is I put a good amount of glue on both sides of this spacer board, and I feather it out to the edges on both sides. So you pull the glue out to the edges with your finger on both sides. By getting glue out to both, all the way out to the edges, we get really nice glue joints, so we don't have any gaps when we pull the clamps off. So I got glue on both sides. We find the 4.25 inch mark we made earlier. We line that up. set it down, give it a little push. Take the fretboard, that goes directly on top. Again, keeping in mind that we want to make sure the fretboard is not behind the spacer. Give that a good little push. We're going to use some rubber bands as clamps to make a good, nice, tight joint everywhere. All right, making sure everything is lined up exactly how we want it. Take a rubber band, stretch it over twice. That'll tie it in place. Make sure that everything is lined up exactly where you want it to be. And then you can wrap your way down the neck. These stretched rubber bands provide really even tension across this whole surface, which makes for really, really nice glue joints. I'm going to pay close attention at the nut end, make it really tight. Wrap this under. And this is good to go until tomorrow. Clamp the neck assembly to the bench, and with the cabinet scraper we pull towards us, and we can scrape off all this extra glue. We can smooth off any edges that might not be perfect, and then once it is nice and rounded, we'll start sanding it and call it good. So here's the box that we use to make the body of the ukulele with. These come from michaels.com. First thing we do is we take off the top hinges to remove the lid, and then the kids get to decide, do they want to hydro dip their box or do they want to engrave it? I have a laser cutter here so we can make pretty fancy things. If the kid wants to engrave it, we use the program Inkscape, and we have different settings that allow us to cut holes all the way through or to burn with different intensities, so you can make a box that looks like this. It'll look very nice. The other thing that kids can do is they can put a much simpler design with just a few holes cut through with the laser cutter, or if you have a Forstner bit or any type of drill bit to make resonant holes, you can do it that way. And then they'll hydro dip them to make really funky looking ukuleles. After that's done, what they'll do is they'll measure off the middle of the front of the body, and they'll saw this out. We use a dovetail saw that makes a nice smooth clean cut, and this notch will pop out, and then we can take and slide the neck assembly into that notch. All right, with the neck parts all glued together and a notch cut out of the top of the box, we can now get ready to install the neck. To do that, we slide it in here. We use a square to make sure that everything is at right angles. Scribe that with a pencil. Put a couple of good beads of wood glue inside here. Push this back in, and then clamp it in place with a squeeze clamp and a small bar clamp. After the glue is dried overnight, we can take off the clamps and get ready to install the tailpiece. At this point, it's starting to look like a musical instrument. We get kind of excited. The tailpiece is made out of 5/8 inch dowel. It's a piece that's 2 inches long. 4 holes are drilled 3/8 of an inch apart for the strings to go through. Rotate it 90 degrees. And those are 2 holes that are in between the 3/8 inch holes. That's a 1/8 inch hole that we're going to use to install the tailpiece. All right. To find the location for the tailpiece, the ukulele is a standard 13.5 inch scale length. So measuring from the top of the fretboard to 13.5, that's where the bridge will go. We're going to run back 2 more inches to 15.5 inches for where we install the tailpiece. So measuring back 15.5 inches, I'm going to make a light mark on the ukulele box. This mark will be covered when we install the tailpiece. Now, to get proper position, we want to make sure that the holes for the strings are in line with the neck. When kids do this, the necks sometimes get a little bit crooked. So what we do is we hold a meter stick against the neck. We bring our tailpiece back to the mark we measured, and we make sure that the holes line up with the neck. Rotate it about 1/4 of a turn. It's now over the mark that we made. I use a nail. I poke that through the hole, push pretty hard. Leave the nail in the hole that we just chose because they're not always exactly balanced. And then we're going to drill an 1/8 inch hole through the mark that was just made with the nail. Excellent. And then to install the tailpiece, we're going to leave the nail in there still. We're going to put a drop of glue in between the 2 1/8 inch holes. We're going to take the nail out. We're going to take one of the small 1 1/4 inch bolts that we have from before. We're going to push that through the hole that the nail was in. That's going to go through the hole we just drilled. We're going to install the nut back here. And at this point, we're just going to make it finger tight. I'm going to come back over here, make sure that the tailpiece is square to the neck and body. I'm going to hold that, and then we drill through the second hole. And without moving anything, we'll put the bolt through, blow off the sawdust, put on the nut, and tighten them up with a wrench and a screwdriver. And then we can install the tuning machines through the back to get our tuning machines ready to go. These are the most expensive part of the ukulele. If you want to do something less expensive or to make it a bit cooler challenge, recently some kids needed to do Science Olympiad and they couldn't buy tuners, so they rigged up this system with long skinny bolts that they used a Dremel tool for a wing nut to slide into, and then they drilled a very small hole through the wing nut, and then they were able to tune the ukulele by tightening these screws. Very ingenious. So here the strings are on. Up here you can see that strings 1 and 4 wrap around the outside of the post, and strings 2 and 3 wrap around the inside of the post. To install the nut, we put it in like this, and it just stands up and the strings will pop into place. To install a bridge, we measure back exactly 13.5 inches and we slide the nut into place. So we can stand the bridge up, measure back 13.5 inches, and that's where it goes. So here we are. We've gone from a few sticks and a box to a nice looking, nice sounding instrument. It takes a motivated student about 3 weeks of 1 hour class sessions. Less motivated take about 4 weeks. So I just thought I'd show you what it sounds like when it's done. So they sound nice. Kids are proud of them when they're done with these. So if you have any questions, my email will pop up on the next screen, and followed by that will be a bunch of images of ukuleles that students have made in the past. I'd love to hear from you, and let me know how it works. Thanks.